Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to make an inexpensive mount for your fish finder transducer using the through-hole method. There are several methods that you can use to do this, but the one I have chosen to show you is the one I have made several installations with. The only issue with this installation is that the water temperature readings will be off a little bit until the hull of the kayak reaches the same approximate temperature as the surrounding water. So, that being said, let's go ahead and get started. I decided to do a mock-up for the through-hole transducer installation because it'll be easier to show each step than it would be if you actually put it inside the hull of the kayak. So to represent the kayak interior, I have this polyethylene cutting board, which I've labeled up in the front as the bow, and at the back here is the stern. And this is going to be the transducer I'm going to use. And this is one that I'm going to specifically use for this, so it's already been cut off. And once I've decided where this is going to be inside the kayak, what I'm going to use for the mount, or what's also called the well, is this 1/2 of a 99-cent pair of flip-flops that I got at Walmart. So what you're going to do is actually lay this transducer on a spot on the flip-flop, and then you're going to cut out the section where the transducer will slide into the well made by this flip-flop. And what I'm going to use is this standard wood pencil, because as I trace along the sides here, it's going to give me a gap for the marine goop to squeeze out of the well in a width of this pencil, which is about 1/4 inch. So I will be using marine goop to fill the well and to secure the transducer inside there. Now, when I use the marine goop, I make sure I'm using a brand new tube because there's less chance of bubbles being in there. Because if you get bubbles in this when you mount it, then your transducer is not going to work right. And before I mount anything on there, what I'll do is I'll use this sponge that has this nice little scrubber on the end and rough up the area where the mount well section is going to go inside the kayak. It'll make it stick a little bit better. So let's go ahead and start cutting some stuff up. So here's the traced out area from the transducer, which I will cut out using a blade knife or whatever you may have on hand you can use. And once I cut out that section, I'll also make this a little smaller section that's actually going to be attached to the board here. Okay, so this is the carved up section of the flip-flop, and you can see it pretty much follows the contour of this transducer, and that'll slide right down in there. And you can see you have a little bit of a gap all the way around it, because when you put the marine goop in the well and press this transducer down, all the excess is going to seep out along the edges here, and then you'll just wipe that and clean it up. Now what I also did here was took a marker around the perimeter of this well mount, and as you can see, because that's the area that I need to use this scrubber on, just to rough it up a little bit. Now if you don't want to use one of these scrubbers, you can use a 100 or 120 grit sandpaper, because all you need to do is basically get the sheen off the polyethylene and just rough it up just a little bit. So I'll go ahead and do that and come back when I'm done. Okay, so I've roughed up this area in here, and what I'm going to do on this well mount here is spread a little thin layer of marine goop for when I set it down here, it'll stay in place while I fill up the well section. So I'll go ahead and do that and move on to the next part. So now the well is filled here with the marine goop, and as you do that, you've got to make sure that there's no bubbles in it, because if there's any bubbles in it, that will interfere with the transducer signal. So checking in there, I can see I'm okay. And now what I'm going to do is take my transducer and press it in here. allowing the excess to squeeze out of the edges until it bottoms out, which will be the hull of your kayak, or in this instance, my PE board here. And you can see I have all that extra overflow, and all I'm going to do is make sure I fill in any gaps that may be around it, and then just clean up the excess. This is the finished product, and you can see that I've wiped up the excess already, and there's no gaps along the perimeter of the transducer. And this one fit in there pretty good because it's got a flat bottom, but some will have a curved bottom. And so what you can do is put a weight across the top of it to keep it in place, because it needs to set up for 24 hours. Or you can also use some blue painter's tape, because it'll hold it in place, but it won't stick to it when you try and pull it off, and then maybe ruin the transducer. But the main thing is to let it set overnight for 24 hours before you use it. And then you'll have yourself a nice, fully functional fish finder on your kayak. So that's it. If you have any questions, please leave them for me in the comments. Thank you.